Vladimir Putin claims that a NATO foreign legion is fighting in Ukraine's east. In reality, the majority of foreign volunteers fighting for Ukraine are actually Russian citizens who are defending their neighbor against the Kremlin.
Initially, I supported the Maidan protest and was waiting for revolution in Russia. My mother says I am a traitor.
Ilya Bogdanov is a former officer in Russia's FSB security service, the successor to the KGB. Since summer 2014, he has been fighting for Ukraine, a role which has served to make him one of the most wanted men in Russia. The former FSB lieutenant says it's impossible to remain fair and honest while working within Russia's security structures. He defected to Ukraine last summer, slipping across the border to offer his services to one of the Ukrainian volunteer battalions, which sprang up to combat the Russian-backed uprising in East Ukraine. A veteran of Russia's security operations in the North Caucasus region, he says the conflict zone in East Ukraine is on a different level altogether.
The Caucasus is like a playground compared to the war in Ukraine.
Ilya joined the Right Sector Volunteer Battalion and served as one of the so-called cyborg soldiers defending Donetsk International Airport. This video shows him raising the Ukrainian flag on the weather station at the airfield. Despite such acts of bravado, some of his Ukrainian brothers-in-arms have questioned whether Ilya might not be a double agent working for his former masters in the Kremlin. While he understands such suspicions, Ilya believes he has already proved his credibility.
Ukrainian intelligence officers carried out a thorough investigation into my status and concluded that I am sincere in my motivation. This is the reason why I have been given this weapon. Let the doubters come here and share a trench with me. Let them see how I raise the Ukrainian flag under sniper fire, while others are afraid to raise their heads. Come and see for yourselves.
Ilya is one of dozens of Russian citizens currently fighting against Kremlin-backed forces in East Ukraine. Personal motivations vary, but all share a common opposition to the Putin regime.
Here are our trenches. If the enemy attacks, we take up our positions here as fast as possible.
This softly spoken Muscovite is hardly the stereotypical frontline fighter. His nickname is Iva, and he refuses to give his real name for fear of putting his relatives in Russia at risk. Iva says he was a small businessman in Moscow until corrupt police officers stole his business. He abandoned Russia last spring and volunteered for Ukraine's Azov battalion.
I saw it as a fight against the Putin regime, but I could not imagine it would turn into such a war. If you knew then, would you still have volunteered? I would have come anyway.
Artyom is a fellow Russian national who is also serving as a volunteer in the Azov battalion. Like Iva, he saw action during the Battle of Ilovaisk, but the two Russians have only just become acquainted.
The shooting of Ukrainian protesters on Independence Square awoke my conscience. I came to fight for freedom in Ukraine.
Artyom is just 20. He's from the Russian city of Samara. His main weapon is an old grenade launcher.
Here is my grenade launcher. It's a very inconvenient weapon. The Soviet designers clearly didn't give much thought to the convenience of the soldiers using it.
Artyom says he's more interested in poetry than weapons. His favorite author is the great Russian poet Sergei Yesenin. Artyom often quotes the poet by heart, a habit which has led his comrades to give him the nickname Yesenin. Artyom and his reconnaissance group allowed our crew to join them on a mission into occupied territory controlled by Russian-backed militants. Their task is to check for the presence of heavy weapons close to Mariupol. Artyom is used to the risks and calmly assesses the dangers his group face.
These are abandoned positions and trenches. We could be ambushed by enemy reconnaissance. Landmines? It's possible. And could the local population inform the enemy about your presence? 100% possible. 100%? Sure. These villagers are mentally still slaves. They always obey the dominant force at any given moment.
Artyom returned safely from his latest mission. However, bad news was waiting for him at the Azov battalion base in Mariupol. Artyom was informed that his father in Russia had passed away. This personal tragedy is compounded by the fact that Artyom cannot return to Russia to mourn. As long as Putin remains in power, Russia will be off limits for Artyom and for all the other Russians who are fighting for Ukraine. Andriy Tsaplienko and Dmitry Orlov reporting from Pisky and Mariupol for Ukraine Today.